It's my 65th birthday, and the house feels heavier than ever. The September morning light drips through the blinds, soft and golden, but inside the dining room there's an emptiness that makes the air cold. On the table sits a single object, my old flip phone. Its scratched silver case catches the light in a way that almost makes it look proud of its scars. Most people would see it as junk, but to me, it's more than plastic and metal. It's the last piece of my wife I still hold close. Her final voice lives inside, recorded on its tiny memory. I run my thumb across the worn buttons, each press mark carved by years of my fingers. My son enters the room, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying the confidence of someone who believes the world owes him comfort. He looks down at the table at my phone and bursts into laughter. "Dad, do you even know they stopped making those 10 years ago?" His voice is sharp, not playful, meant to slice, not tease. He holds it up between his fingers as if he's displaying a relic from a museum. The sound of his laughter fills the room in a way that makes it smaller, pushing me into the corner of my own birthday. There's a gap between us that no birthday cake can fix. 3 years have passed since he last hugged me, though I raised him alone after his mother's passing. I still remember the nights I stitched torn shoes for him by candlelight, how he used to call me hero. Now, he doesn't even call me Dad, unless others are watching. The phone in his hand buzzes faintly, the vibration rattling against the wooden table. He doesn't notice, but I do. That vibration is more than a reminder of age. It's a heartbeat whispering of the secret it still carries. I swallow the lump in my throat. My wife's last message still lives inside that phone, her voice soft, saying my name the night before the surgery that took her from me. I never let the phone go because losing it would mean losing her again. My son doesn't know this. To him, it's just a joke, another way to show I'm outdated, irrelevant. But as he laughs louder, waving the phone like a trophy of shame, I feel something shift inside me. His words aren't just careless. They're a knife twisting in the silence between us. For a moment I wonder if this is the price of love unreturned, to raise a child only to be humiliated by him when age weakens you. My chest tightens. Betrayal doesn't always roar like thunder. Sometimes it creeps in as laughter at breakfast. I glance again at the phone and I know something he doesn't. That device isn't finished yet. Its ring will shatter his smug smile, and when it does, everything will change. And that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I sit at the table long after my son leaves the room, the laughter still echoing through the walls like a stain that won't wash away. My hand rests on the phone. It's heavier than it should be, as if all those years of memories are pressed into its tiny frame. I remember when I first bought it, not for myself, but for my wife. She had always been forgetful with numbers, so I programmed my name under 1 on speed dial. She carried it in her purse, worn leather against plastic, always knowing she could reach me with a single button. After she died, the phone came back to me. I could have upgraded like everyone said I should, but I couldn't, because inside it, in the little folder marked voicemail, lives her final message. She had left it the night before her surgery, her voice calm but tired, saying my name, reminding me to water the lilies, and then whispering, "I'll see you tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. Every time I listen, my chest tightens, but I also feel her hand on mine just for a moment. It's strange how an object becomes sacred. Anthropologists talk about relics, bones, beads, cloth. For me, it's this outdated phone, the kind that makes teenagers roll their eyes. In Japan, I once read some families keep old radios running long after they're broken just because the static reminds them of loved ones who used to listen. A silly habit, some would say. But grief doesn't follow reason. It follows the heart. I wonder if my son knows this side of me anymore. He used to watch me cradle the phone when he was young. I'd show him pictures of his mother pointed her smile on the tiny screen. Back then, he never mocked. He'd say, "Dad, keep it safe. That's Mom's phone." But time hardens children. Somewhere along the line, his memory of that tenderness has been erased, replaced by ambition, by the need to prove himself bigger than the father who raised him. I lean back in my chair. The phone buzzes again just once, like a pulse reminding me it's alive. My son didn't notice earlier, but I did. There's something uncanny about timing, as though the phone itself is waiting for the right moment. A silence stretches around me, heavy enough to press on my ribs. Silence can be kind, but today it feels cruel, mocking me alongside my son's laughter. I whisper to the phone, almost embarrassed. "One day you'll speak for me." The air shifts when the front door slams. My son has gone to meet his friends. I picture him telling them how his old man still clings to that fossil of a phone. The thought burns. Respect once given freely now feels like a luxury. But here's what he doesn't know. Respect isn't the only thing I hold. Inside this phone and in the drawer upstairs, there are truths that will speak louder than his mockery. For now, I sit quietly, the weight of the phone in my palm, remembering the woman who gave me both love and loss. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The next morning, I wake early. The house creaks the way old houses do, wood stretching against the cool air, reminding me of how long I've lived here. My son's door is closed, but I know he's awake. His footsteps moved around just before dawn. Yet he doesn't greet me. He hasn't not properly in years. 3 years. That's how long it has been since he last wrapped his arms around me. I remember it clearly at the hospital after his mother's funeral. He had cried into my shoulder, clinging to me like the little boy I once knew. That was the last time. Since then, there's been a wall between us, invisible yet unbreakable. I set the kettle to boil, and the whistle cuts into the silence like a blade. I pour the water into my mug, the steam curling upward. The smell of green tea fills the room, a scent his mother loved. She used to say tea carried patience, that letting the leaves steep slowly taught the heart how to wait. I take a sip, the warmth pressing against my lips, and wonder if patience is all I have left. When my son finally comes downstairs, he avoids my eyes. He scrolls through his glossy smartphone, swiping, quickly tapping messages to people who seem to own his attention more than I ever did. He glances at me, then at my old flip phone sitting on the counter, and smirks. No words, just that smirk. That small curve of his lips cuts deeper than shouting. Mockery doesn't always need sound, it thrives in silence too. I try to break it. Do you remember, I ask softly, how your mother used to call me from this phone when you were at school? Just to say you ate your lunch? He doesn't answer. He just shrugs, eyes fixed on his screen. I can almost hear his thoughts. Dad, move on. Dad, let it go. The distance isn't only physical. It's spiritual, emotional. A canyon carved between us. I raised him through storms, through empty cupboards, through the nights I worked 3 jobs just to keep him clothed. And now at 65, I am the relic he laughs at. Mainstream fact psychologists say that children often drift from parents in adulthood, a natural step toward independence. But what I see isn't distance, it's dismissal. He doesn't see me as a man anymore, only as a shadow of what once was. I remember something odd I once read in a folk almanac, that if a child disrespects their elder, it curses the house with bad luck until an apology is spoken. Old superstition, maybe. Still, I can't shake the thought as I watch him sip coffee without offering me a cup. The silence between us stretches again. Silence has its own way of speaking, and today it says you are no longer needed. I lower my eyes to the phone. The weight of it in my pocket is the only comfort I have. One day I tell myself it will speak louder than his silence. The house fills slowly as relatives arrive with polite smiles and wrapped gifts. The kind of presents chosen more for appearance than for meaning. My birthday cake sits in the center of the table, its candles waiting, though nobody mentions lighting them yet. I sit quietly observing. I've grown used to being a guest at my own celebrations. My son paces around like a host, shaking hands, offering drinks, laughing a little too loudly. I should be proud of him, confident, social, a man others seem drawn to. But every laugh of his feels like a wall he's building higher, keeping me at a distance. It happens in a moment, so quick, yet it splits the air. He picks up my old flip phone from where I set it on the table. Holding it high, he turns to the relatives gathered in the living room. "Look at this," he announces, grinning wide. "Can you believe my dad still carries this dinosaur?" I swear it belongs in a museum. Laughter trickles through the room, nervous at first, then louder. Some cover their mouths, others chuckle openly. My daughter-in-law joins in, shaking her head. "Maybe it's time you upgrade Dad," she says, her tone half sweet, half barbed. My cheeks burn, though I force a smile. It isn't the first time I've been laughed at, but this cuts deeper because it's my son leading the chorus. I see one cousin glance at me, guilt flickering across his face, but he says nothing. Nobody says anything. In that silence, I hear the truth. They all think I'm outdated. Useless. Finished. I want to speak to remind them what this phone means, but the words tangle in my throat. The flip phone is more than plastic. It carries the last voice of my wife, the woman who once tied this family together. But how do you explain that in a room full of laughter? Mainstream fact. I once read that in group settings, people will laugh at things they don't even find funny just to avoid standing out. It's called social conformity. That's what I see now, the relatives following my son's lead, too afraid to break the current. A strange detail flashes in my mind. My wife used to believe that objects carried energy. She once told me never to mock someone's belongings because what you mock you invite into your own life. She would have scolded my son today. The laughter fades, but the damage lingers. I fold my hands pretending calm, though inside I feel the first crack in my day. Not from old age, not from sickness, but from betrayal wrapped in laughter. I tell myself to stay silent, to wait, because sometimes silence sharpens the blade of truth better than words ever could. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The laughter dies down, but its echo stays in my ears long after the room grows quiet again. I keep my gaze on the phone in my son's hand. To him, it's a toy to mock. To me, it's a vault holding the last treasure of my life. My wife's voice. I remember the night she recorded it. She was in the hospital, thin as paper, her smile still trying to comfort me when she should have been the one comforted. That evening, I had stepped out to buy her favorite lemon tea. When I came back, the nurse told me she had left me a message. I didn't listen to it right away. I waited until she was gone the next morning, and then her voice came through soft, steady, speaking my name like a prayer. "Don't forget the lilies," she said, "and remember, I'll see you tomorrow." That message is why I never replace the phone. Others see plastic and wires. I hear a heartbeat. I hear her. My son never asked me why I kept it. Maybe he didn't care, or maybe he didn't want to know. To him, it's embarrassing to have a father clinging to the past. Yet, isn't that what memory is clinging? Psychologists say grief isn't about letting go, but about finding a way to carry the one you lost. That's what this phone is. My way of carrying her. I brush my thumb across the keypad, feeling the worn-out numbers like Braille. Each mark is a history of late-night calls, quick messages, arguments that turned into laughter. This device isn't just a relic. It's proof that love leaves traces you can still hold in your hand. There's a small superstition my wife once shared. In some villages, people believe objects can hold the spirit of the departed if they were touched often enough. That's why families keep old shawls, watches, even spoons. To them, those items are not clutter, they're bridges. And maybe this phone is my bridge. I glance up. My son is still entertaining the guests, loud and proud, my phone tucked into his pocket now like a joke he can use later. The sight twists my stomach. He doesn't realize what he's holding hostage. I sip the cold tea in front of me, my hands trembling. The weight of memory presses harder than the laughter did. Because the truth is, if that phone were ever lost or broken, I would lose my wife all over again. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. Dinner stretches on like a play I didn't audition for. The table is crowded with steaming dishes, roast chicken bowls of rice, stir-fried greens, but the warmth of food can't hide the cold currents running underneath. My son sits at the head, pouring drinks with the authority of a man who thinks he owns more than just the evening. At first, the chatter is harmless, small talk about work, traffic, the weather. Then, like smoke seeping under a door, the whispers begin. My daughter-in-law leans toward one of her cousins, her voice just soft enough that she thinks I won't catch it. Maybe it's time he moved into a home. He can't even use a modern phone. A giggle follows, sharp as broken glass. I keep my eyes on my plate, but my ears burn. I know the trick of whispers. They're always loud enough for the intended target to hear. That's the point. A humiliation delivered in silk instead of steel. Mainstream fact in family psychology, there's something called triangulation, when one member of the family undermines another by roping in a third. That's what's happening here. My son doesn't stop her. By staying silent, he joins her side. A quirky detail surfaces in my memory. My wife once told me about an old belief in her village. At feasts, people avoided whispering because it was thought to invite wandering spirits. Whispers were seen as unfinished prayers, words the dead might steal. I wonder what spirits she would think are gathering here tonight. The weight of betrayal presses on my chest, not only from my son, but from the woman he chose who now treats me like clutter to be pushed aside. I think of all the years I watched over him, protecting him from cruel classmates, shielding him from hunger when money was scarce. And here I sit in my own house listening to whispers plotting my exile. I lift my glass, my hand steady despite the storm inside. I don't speak. Silence is my only weapon tonight, and silence has its own way of speaking. Still, the phone in my pocket feels heavier, as though reminding me it holds more than memories. It holds a voice, a secret, and perhaps a kind of justice yet to come. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The guests drift into the living room after dinner, voices rising and falling like waves. I excuse myself and step out onto the porch. The night air is cool, carrying the faint smell of jasmine from the neighbor's garden. I close my eyes, letting the quiet settle, but even here, the echoes of laughter and whispers follow me. It's out here in the half-light of the street lamp that I remember a moment from a few months ago. My neighbor, an old man named Mr. Hahn, had stopped me as I watered the front yard. He leaned on his cane, his eyes sharp despite his age. "Be careful with your son," he had said suddenly, his voice low. "I've seen men like him before. Ambition makes them blind. He visits you, yes, but not for love, only for what he can take." At the time, I laughed it off. I told myself he was just lonely, weaving stories to make conversation. But the way he looked at me that day, serious, almost sorrowful, stuck with me. Now, standing in the night with my son's laughter floating through the window, I feel the warning wrapping around me like a cold hand. My neighbor had nothing to gain from lying. Why then do his words weigh heavier now than ever before? Mainstream fact, it said that outsiders often see family dynamics more clearly than those caught inside. Counselors and social workers call it observer clarity. Perhaps that's why the warning from my neighbor rings louder than my own instincts. A strange thought comes in Vietnamese folklore. There's a belief that sometimes strangers deliver messages from ancestors. A passerby might utter a phrase that carries the voice of the dead. My wife believed in such things. Tonight, I wonder if Mr. Hahn's warning was more than just gossip. I glanced down at my phone, the flip phone that everyone mocked today. I tightened my grip. If my son truly sees me only as a bank account, as a stepping stone, then this phone, this relic, might be the only thing keeping his greed from swallowing everything. Inside, laughter bursts again, sharp and careless. It cuts into the night like broken glass. I don't return to the table immediately. I stay on the porch a little longer, replaying my neighbor's words. "Be careful with your son." Silence presses against my chest. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. When I finally step back inside, the smell of roasted chicken has faded, replaced by the clinking of glasses and the hollow cheer of voices. Plates are half-empty, crumbs scattered across the table like the remnants of a battle no one acknowledges. I slide quietly into my chair, but no one seems to notice. It is my birthday, and yet I feel invisible. My son raises his glass. A toast, he announces, his voice booming across the room. Everyone looks up, waiting. He smiles wide and polished, the kind of smile meant for strangers, not family, to new beginnings, to success, and to family that moves forward. The words sound fine on the surface, but I catch the sharp undertone. Family that moves forward. It's a phrase with edges cutting me out of the picture. I motion toward the chair beside me, hoping he'll join me for just a moment. "Sit down, son," I say softly, almost pleading. "It's been a long day. Share a plate with me." But he shakes his head. "I'm fine here," he replies, moving instead toward his wife and her relatives. They welcome him eagerly, making space, clinking glasses with laughter. My chair remains empty, the space beside me cold. It's a small thing, really, refusing to sit beside me. Yet small things are often the clearest signals. Children show love in gestures, not speeches, and absence is also a gesture. Mainstream fact sociologists write that at family gatherings, seating arrangements often reveal hidden power. Who sits where and beside whom tells the story of loyalty and rejection. Tonight, the story is written clearly. He belongs to them now, not to me. I glance at the table, at the untouched dish of braised pork I made from my wife's old recipe. No one eats it. My son doesn't even glance at it. Once he used to beg me for that dish, licking the sauce from his fingers, laughing with joy. Now it sits abandoned like me. A strange cultural detail slips into my mind. In some rural households, if a child refuses to sit with a parent during a feast, elders whisper that the bond between them has been broken like a rope frayed beyond repair. Tonight I feel that fray tightening around my chest. I take a sip of water, the taste metallic on my tongue. The room swells with voices, but I feel further away than ever. I thought rejection would come with shouting. Instead, it comes with an empty chair. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. Later that night, when the guests finally drift away and the house quiets down, I retreat to my room. The laughter still hums faintly in the air, like smoke that refuses to clear. I sit at my desk, the lamp casting a small circle of light, and pull open the drawer that has remained closed for months. Inside lies an envelope, thick yellowed, the edges curled with age. My name is written on the front in my own hand, but the ink has faded. I stare at it for a long while, my fingers hovering just above it. I've never opened it in front of anyone, not even my son. He doesn't know it exists. Maybe that's why I keep it hidden, because some truths are too sharp for careless hands. The envelope contains a deed. The deed to the small property my wife and I bought decades ago when our dreams were bigger than our pockets. Back then we couldn't afford much, just a patch of land outside town. A place she said we'd turn into a garden someday. Life got in the way, but we kept it, paid the taxes quietly, and let it sleep. To my son, it doesn't exist. He thinks I have nothing left. Perhaps that's why he dares to mock me to plan futures without me. But the envelope in this drawer says otherwise. Mainstream. Fact, legally, a deed is more than just paper. It is proof of ownership, the kind of document that can shift power in an instant. Families have risen and fallen over less. I know this, and I know the weight of what lies in my drawer. A strange superstition echoes in my mind something my wife once told me. Never show your whole hand until the moment comes. Even the kindest family can turn sharp if money is on the table. She was right. She always was. I run my fingers over the envelope, feeling the ridge of the paper against my skin. The deed is my quiet shield, the weapon I have never used, not out of malice, but out of patience. Tonight, though, as I replay my son's laughter and my daughter-in-law's whispers, I feel the envelope pulse with new meaning. The phone in my pocket buzzes faintly, almost as if it agrees. I close the drawer gently, leaving the envelope where it is. Its time hasn't come yet, but it will. Silence fills the room, heavy and expectant. I thought I was holding back for peace. Now I realize I'm holding back for the right moment. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I cannot sleep that night. The house is too quiet, the kind of quiet that magnifies every creak of wood and every sigh of wind outside the window. I sit at my desk again, staring at the drawer where the envelope rests. My hand moves almost on its own, sliding it open once more. The envelope is there, waiting, its edges worn and softened by time. But this time I reach a little deeper. Beneath the envelope lies a photograph. The corners are bent, the colors faded, yet the image still speaks as clearly as the day it was taken. It's me, my wife and my son, back when his smile was wide and innocent, when love flowed freely in this family. He can't be more than 10 in the picture. His small hands are wrapped around the very same flip phone that now sits mocked in his pocket. I trace my wife's face with a fingertip. Her eyes are alive in the photo, full of dreams. She had insisted on taking the picture that day. One day we'll look back and remember how simple happiness can be, she'd said. She was right. And now here I am, clutching that memory like a lifeline. I feel the sting of tears, but I force them back. My son probably wouldn't even recognize the meaning in this photograph anymore. He'd see an outdated image, people in worn clothes and a phone he thinks is useless. He wouldn't see the truth that it was once our lifeline, our bridge when I worked late, our way of saying goodnight, even from miles away. Mainstream fact psychologists say photographs are memory anchors. Looking at an old picture doesn't just remind you of the past, it can trigger the same emotions you felt in that moment. Tonight, as I look at this photo, I feel her voice again, warm and gentle, telling me that patience will carry me through. A quirky detail drifts into my mind in some rural households. Old photographs are placed in wooden frames on altars believed to let the spirits of ancestors watch over the living. My wife's parents did that. Perhaps this photo has become my altar, my way of keeping her close. I slip the photograph back into the drawer, resting it on top of the envelope. Together, they are my hidden strength, the past and the present, folded neatly away. My son may believe I have nothing, but these pieces of paper prove otherwise. They remind me I am not empty, not finished. The phone buzzes once muffled in my pocket, as though agreeing. The timing sends a chill down my spine. It is as if the photo, the deed, and the phone are all tied together, waiting for the right moment to speak. I lean back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Silence stretches through the house, but within that silence lies a promise. I thought memory was my only shield. Soon I will learn it can also become my weapon. The next morning, the house carries the stale scent of last night's feast. Cold chicken bones. Faint wine, the lingering smoke of candles blown out too quickly. My son is already at the table, scrolling on his phone, sipping coffee like he owns the silence. My old flip phone sits beside my plate, quiet, patient. I take a seat and watch him for a moment. He doesn't look up. He doesn't even acknowledge my presence. Something inside me tightens, a knot of years spent swallowing words. Today, the knot loosens. "Why do you laugh at me?" I ask. My voice is steady, though my hands tremble beneath the table. He glances at me, eyebrows raised as though I've asked a ridiculous question. "What do you mean?" "The phone," I say, tapping it gently. "The way you hold it up, the way you mock me in front of others. Why?" For a moment his expression flickers surprise, maybe guilt, but then it hardens into a smirk. "Dad, come on. It's just a joke. Everyone laughs. No one means anything by it. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive. The word slices deeper than an insult. It's dismissal disguised as kindness. I push a little further. It isn't a joke when it's your own father you're laughing at. You know this phone means something to me. He shrugs his eyes, sliding back to his gleaming smartphone. Maybe that's the problem, Dad. You're stuck in the past. Everyone else has moved on. Maybe it's time you did too. The silence that follows feels heavier than shouting. I want to tell him about the voicemail, about the photograph, about the deed tucked away like a sleeping truth. But I stop. Some secrets aren't ready yet. Instead, I let the silence speak for me. Mainstream fact and communication theory. Silence is considered a loaded message. It doesn't mean nothing. It means everything left unsaid. A strange memory drifts in. My wife once told me of an old superstition from her childhood. If a child disrespects a parent at the breakfast table, the parent must remain silent, or else the words spoken in anger will poison the day. Perhaps that's why I hold back. Perhaps I'm still listening to her voice. My son finishes his coffee and stands. Don't take it so personally, Dad. It's just a phone. You're reading too much into it. He leaves the room, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. I look at the phone. My fingers hover over it, tempted to press the button that will replay her voice, to remind myself why I endure. But I don't. Not yet. I thought silence would protect me, but silence also sharpens the blade of betrayal. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The day drags on with a heaviness I can't shake. My son disappears into town, leaving the house echoing with his absence, yet his words remain stinging like nettles under the skin. I busy myself with small chores, sweeping the porch, wiping down the kitchen counters, but none of it eases the knot in my chest. The old phone rests in my pocket, its weight constant like a stone I can't put down. That evening, I sit in the living room with the lamp casting a dim pool of light over the carpet. The house feels emptier than ever. I close my eyes for a moment, and then suddenly the phone vibrates. Once, a sharp buzz followed by the shrill ring that slices through the silence. I freeze. The sound feels foreign now, almost ghostly, because the phone rarely rings anymore. Most people don't even know the number still works. I fumble to open it, the hinge creaking like an old door, and the screen lights up with a number I recognize instantly. My lawyer's office. The phone keeps ringing, the old melody chiming like an alarm from another era. My heart thuds in my chest, beating in rhythm with each buzz. For a moment, I don't answer. I just stare at it, the sound filling the empty house. Mainstream fact studies show that the sound of a familiar ringtone can trigger an emotional response stronger than words themselves. Tonight, the ring feels like a reminder that the past still lives, waiting to step into the present. I flip it open at last, pressing it to my ear. Hello? Mr. Tran, the voice on the other end, greets me warmly. It's my lawyer, calm and professional. Just reminding you of our appointment tomorrow morning. Everything is prepared for the transfer. You haven't forgotten, have you? A chill sweeps through me. No, I haven't forgotten. How could I? The deed in my drawer, the hidden truth my son doesn't know, it all comes rushing back. I murmur, no, I haven't forgotten. My voice sounds distant even to myself. We speak only briefly, but the weight of that short call lingers after I close the phone. It feels as though the old device has woken from slumber, announcing itself to the world again. I stare at it in my hand, the silver scratch the buttons worn. Tonight it rang once like the toll of a bell announcing a storm. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I sit for a long time after the call ends, the phone heavy in my hand, its screen dark once more. The sound of my lawyer's voice echoes in my head. Everything is prepared for the transfer. Simple words, yet they strike like thunder in the quiet room. The secret I've carried for so long is no longer a secret to me alone. Tomorrow, ink will turn memory into permanence. I close the phone gently, careful not to snap it shut. My wife used to hate that sound. She said it was too harsh, like slamming a door. I let it click softly instead, the way she preferred. Even now, her little habits guide me. The thought of the transfer churns in my chest. The land deed, the envelope, the photograph, all pieces of a puzzle my son knows nothing about. And maybe that ignorance has made him careless, bold enough to laugh in my face, to treat me as though I'm already a ghost. I walk to the kitchen, pour myself a small glass of water, and stare at my reflection in the window. My face looks older than I remember, lines carved, deep silver hair catching the faint light. I wonder if my wife would recognize me now. Then I wonder if my son ever really sees me at all. Mainstream fact lawyers say families are torn apart most often not by poverty but by hidden wealth. A deed, a will, even a forgotten account can set siblings, children, parents against one another. The betrayal is never about the money alone. It's about the secrets, the feeling of being shut out. And isn't that what I've done by keeping the envelope hidden, by clinging to silence? I've built a wall between us too. Perhaps I thought it was protection, but maybe it's just another kind of betrayal. The thought twists in me like a knife. A quirky memory surfaces. My wife once told me a folktale about a farmer who kept a gold coin hidden under his mattress. When he died, his children tore the house apart, fighting over scraps, never realizing the coin lay just beneath them. She used to laugh at the story, but with a shadow in her eyes. Secrets poison families, she warned. I close my eyes, her voice still clear. Did I poison mine already? The phone buzzes once more in my pocket, though this time it's only a faint vibration, just a text reminder from the lawyer. Still, the timing startles me as though the phone itself is urging me forward. I whisper into the silence, tomorrow it begins. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The next evening, the house fills again. This time it's for the official birthday dinner, delayed a day so more relatives could come. The table is crowded with dishes, the air buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses. Yet beneath the cheer, I sense something darker, like a storm pressing against the windows before rain. My son stands tall at the head of the table, his voice commanding the room. "Let's raise a toast to my father," he declares. But his grin carries no warmth. He holds up his glass, then lowers it slightly, letting silence hang for effect. To the man who refuses to join the modern world, still clinging to the past, still clutching that old phone. Laughter ripples around the table, nervous but eager to please. I see my daughter-in-law smirk, her hand brushing his arm as if to say, "Well done." My chest tightens, but I remain seated still, my phone lying face down beside my plate. He isn't finished. Imagine he continues, a man in this century who doesn't even know how to use apps, who can't send a proper message, who still thinks that tiny screen is enough. "Tell me, Dad, do you also want us to bring back typewriters?" The room erupts again, laughter spilling like wine. I stare at the phone. Its silence feels louder than their voices. I know what it holds. I know one ring is all it would take to shift the balance, but I let him laugh a little longer. Mainstream fact in group psychology: public humiliation is a performance of power. The one who mocks asserts dominance. The one mocked loses status. Tonight my son plays his role perfectly, soaking in the laughter like applause. A strange folk memory surfaces. My wife once told me about stormbirds. In her hometown, when crows gathered noisily on rooftops, elders said it meant a storm was near, not of weather, but of fate. Looking at the faces around this table, I feel like I'm staring at a murder of crows, their laughter hiding sharp beaks. The storm is here, waiting to break. I can taste it in the wine, hear it in the brittle laughter, feel it in the heavy pause before the next insult. I glance down at my phone. Its scratched surface reflects the candlelight, small and steady like a flame that refuses to die. I thought patience would shield me. Instead, patience has become the silence before thunder. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The laughter fades into clinking glasses and the scrape of forks on plates. My son basks in the glow of attention, retelling the joke, exaggerating details so the room erupts again. Each chuckle feels like a hammer striking the walls of my chest. Still, I do not speak. I fold my hands on the table, my eyes lowered, letting the silence settle around me like a cloak. He leans closer, lowering his voice just enough for me to hear. "Come on, Dad. Lighten up. You should be grateful people are laughing with you." The word with cuts. No one is laughing with me. They're laughing at me. He knows it, and I know it. I let the silence stretch. My father once told me that silence is more powerful than anger, that it forces others to hear their own voices louder. Tonight, I test his wisdom. My daughter-in-law shifts uncomfortably. Perhaps she feels the weight of my quiet, or perhaps she worries I will speak, that my words might pierce their laughter. She pats my son's arm. "Enough," she murmurs, but he brushes her hand away. "It's just a joke," he insists, louder this time, making sure everyone hears. The phone rests beside my plate. Scratched, ordinary, patient. My fingers itch to flip it open, to press the button that will let my wife's voice spill into this room, to let her remind them all that love once lived here. But I stop. Not yet. Mainstream fact in negotiation training, they teach something called the power of pause. A well-timed silence unsettles the opponent more than words. I see it working now. My son's smile falters just slightly. He wants me to bite, to defend myself, to give him more to mock. Instead, I give him nothing. A curious memory flickers. My wife used to believe that holding silence during humiliation was like holding a blade by the hilt painful, but when the time came, you could turn it around. Tonight I feel her voice in my stillness. The room grows restless. Conversations scatter. My son fills the air with more stories, louder, wilder, desperate to drown the silence I've wrapped around him. I sip my water slowly, letting the taste of metal sit on my tongue. Silence has its own way of speaking. Tonight mine says, I will not break, but you might. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The room is buzzing again, filled with chatter and bursts of laughter that no longer reach me. I sit quietly, my hands folded on the table, the phone resting near my plate like an uninvited guest. No one can ignore. My son leans back in his chair, boasting about a new business deal, his voice carrying above everyone else. He doesn't notice that his words ring hollow to me. Then it happens. The phone vibrates against the wood, sharp, insistent, and the old ringtone fills the air. Its sound is so out of place among the polished tones of modern smartphones that the room falls silent almost instantly. Heads turn, forks freeze. My son's smile falters. The phone rings again, louder this time, its tinny chime echoing like a bell in a cathedral. I let it ring. Not touching it, not rushing. I watch their faces as the sound spreads. My daughter-in-law frowns annoyed while some of the relatives exchange curious looks. My son's eyes narrow. He wasn't expecting this relic to come alive. At the third ring, I flip it open slowly, pressing the speaker button so the voice can be heard by all. Good evening, Mr. Tran. My lawyer's voice booms from the little device, clear and formal. Just confirming for tomorrow morning. The transfer papers are ready and the signatures will be witnessed at 10 o'clock. Please bring your identification. The room is stunned. Silence drops heavier than before. My son's glass hovers midair, his hand trembling slightly. The words transfer papers hang like smoke above the table. I answer calmly, my voice steady. Yes, I'll be there. Thank you. I close the phone with a soft snap. For a moment, no one breathes. Then I lift my glass of water and take a slow sip as if nothing unusual has happened. Mainstream fact in law, the word transfer almost always implies ownership, property, assets, rights. Anyone who has dealt with estates knows its weight. Tonight, the word is enough to turn every smile pale. A curious detail I once read comes to mind. In some old villages, bells ringing unexpectedly during a feast were seen as omens, heralding change or misfortune. The way my phone rang tonight, it feels like that kind of omen. I set the phone back on the table. Its scratched surface gleams faintly in the candlelight. For years it was mocked. Now it has spoken louder than all their laughter. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The air in the dining room feels thick, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. No one dares to speak first. My son lowers his glass slowly, the confidence drained from his face. My daughter-in-law stares at me, lips parted as if she wants to ask something, but she doesn't. I place the phone gently beside my plate, letting the silence stretch until it becomes unbearable. Then, in a voice calm and measured, I say, "That was my lawyer. Tomorrow, some matters will be finalized." The words hang in the air like a guillotine. I don't explain further. I don't need to. The word matters is vague enough to leave them guessing, but sharp enough to make them restless. My son clears his throat, trying to recover his poise. Matters? What kind of matters? His tone is sharper now, stripped of the humor he wielded all evening. I look at him, holding his gaze for the first time in days. Important ones. Ones you don't need to worry about. His jaw tightens. He doesn't like being shut out. He's used to holding the room, commanding attention. Now, every eye is flicking between him and me. The power has shifted, even if just slightly. Mainstream fact in conversation dynamics. Partial disclosure, what psychologists call a teaser statement, creates more tension than full disclosure. People fear what they cannot define. Tonight, my half-reveal has done exactly that. A strange detail my wife once told me surfaces in my mind. In her village, if someone spoke vaguely during a gathering, people believed it meant they carried a hidden blessing or a curse. Either way, silence afterward was treated with respect. Looking around now, I see that same respect forming in the unease of my relatives. My son leans forward. "Dad," he says, his voice low but trembling at the edges, "if this is about money or property or anything like that, you should tell me. I'm your son. I deserve to know." I let his words linger in the air before I answer. "You'll know when the time is right." The table shifts uncomfortably. No one eats, no one drinks. The storm is broken, but only halfway. The thunder has rolled across the hills, but the lightning hasn't struck yet. I lift my glass again, drinking slowly, deliberately. The silence does the rest. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The silence stretches so long that even the candles seem to flicker nervously. My son shifts in his chair, restless, his fingers tapping against his glass. The word transfer still lingers in the air, gnawing at his confidence. I watch him carefully, and for the first time in years, he doesn't look certain of himself. Around the table, the reactions ripple one by one. My daughter-in-law lowers her glass without drinking, her eyes narrowing as if she's calculating possibilities. My cousin, seated across from me, clears his throat, glances at my son, then quickly drops his gaze as though afraid to be caught staring. Even the younger relatives who had laughed so easily earlier now exchange nervous glances. My son forces a laugh. It's brittle a sound without weight. "Come on, Dad, don't be dramatic. What could you possibly have to transfer? A few old clothes, that creaky house." His words wobble, lacking the sharp edge they carried before. I don't answer. I simply look at him, letting my silence be louder than any reply. His smirk falters further, and for the first time in a long while, I see something new in his eyes. Fear. Mainstream fact. Fear of the unknown is often stronger than fear of the known. Studies in behavioral psychology show that uncertainty creates more anxiety than clear, defined danger. Tonight, my half-reveal works like a blade held just out of sight. A peculiar detail crosses my mind. My wife once told me that when someone's face turned pale during a gathering, it meant they had been touched by truth, even if they didn't want to admit it. Looking at my son now, his color draining, I wonder if she was right. I lift the phone and place it squarely in front of me, its scratched silver cover gleaming faintly in the candlelight. The room's attention follows as though the object has transformed from a joke into a judge. My son swallows hard. His lips twitch as if he wants to speak, but no words come. His silence for once is heavier than mine. Faces pale around the table, yet I sit calmly sipping my water as though nothing unusual has happened. Inside, though, I feel the shift. The storm has reached their hearts. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The silence cracks at last. My son slams his glass down on the table, the sharp thud making several guests flinch. His face is flushed now, not with laughter, but with anger. "Enough, Dad," he says, his voice rising. "You've been sitting there all night acting like you've got some big secret. Stop playing games. Tell us what this is really about." All eyes swing to me. The room feels suddenly smaller, the air tight with anticipation. I keep my hands folded, my posture calm. The old phone lies in front of me like a quiet sentinel. "I don't owe anyone an explanation," I reply evenly. "Not tonight." His fist clenches. "Don't twist this. I'm your son. If there's something money, property, whatever it concerns me, you don't get to keep me in the dark." My daughter-in-law jumps in, her voice syrupy but edged. "Yes, Father, we should all know. Transparency is important in families. Secrets only cause problems." The irony makes my chest tighten. They speak of transparency after months, years of whispers behind my back. Mainstream fact: inheritance disputes are one of the leading causes of family estrangement. Studies show siblings and children often fight hardest, not for wealth itself, but for control. Tonight I see it firsthand. I lean back, letting their desperation wash over me. "Funny," I murmur, "how interested you suddenly are. Yesterday I was just an old fool with a useless phone." My son's face reddens. "That's not what I meant." "Yes," I say softly but firmly, "it is." The words hang between us like a blade. The relatives shift uncomfortably in their seats, some staring at their plates, others at me. The shift of power is palpable. A curious superstition flickers in my mind. My wife once told me that in her hometown, when a child shouted at a parent during a feast, it meant the ancestor spirits would turn away from that family. I wonder what spirits are watching us now. My son leans forward, his voice low, trembling with rage. "If you think you can make a fool out of me in front of everyone, you're wrong. Whatever you're hiding, I'll find out. You can't keep it from me forever." I meet his glare without blinking. "Perhaps," I say, "but tonight you'll learn that not everything belongs to you." The room goes utterly still. Even the candles seem frozen in their flames. I thought confrontation would end the storm. Instead, it has only sharpened its edge. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The tension is a living thing now, crawling over the table, choking every word. My son's glare burns into me, his jaw tight, his knuckles white against the wood. The relatives sit frozen, trapped between loyalty and fear. The candles flicker as if stirred by an unseen draft. And then it happens again. The phone vibrates against the table, rattling like a drumbeat. Its shrill, old-fashioned ringtone bursts into the air louder this time, commanding attention. Every conversation stops mid-breath. All eyes snap toward the small scratch device that had been mocked only hours before. My son flinches. His shoulders stiffen, his face draining of color. The sound doesn't belong to this century yet. In this moment, it drowns every modern voice, every sleek smartphone. I let it ring twice before flipping it open, pressing the speaker button once more. Mr. Tran. My lawyer's voice comes again, firmer now, as though aware of the importance. Just confirming you'll be present at 10 o'clock tomorrow. The transfer papers are prepared and the witnesses will be there. We'll finalize everything. If there are any objections, they must be addressed then. The words transfer papers echo like thunder. My son's face tightens. My daughter-in-law lowers her eyes, her fork slipping from her hand and clattering against the plate. A cousin coughs nervously, breaking the silence for only a second before it swallows the room again. Yes, I reply, steady and clear. I'll be there. My voice fills the silence with something heavier than anger certainty. Mainstream fact in legal practice, once a lawyer sets a date with witnesses, it signals that the process is essentially complete. To those who understand the system, it means ownership is beyond dispute. Tonight, those words are daggers. A memory from long ago stirs my wife once told me that in her village, when a bell rang 3 times in succession, it meant fate had spoken. The first ring was a warning, the second a reminder, the third final judgment. As I close the phone, the echo of that superstition presses against my chest. The phone lies silent now, but its voice has already spoken louder than any of us. My son stares at me, trembling rage and fear warring in his eyes. He opens his mouth, but no words come. I sit back, slowly folding my hands, letting the silence deepen until it feels like the whole house is listening. I thought the ringing had ended the storm, but the truth is, the storm has only just begun. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The silence after the third ring feels heavier than stone. My son sits stiff, his jaw grinding, his eyes fixed on me as though staring hard enough might force the truth out. The relatives wait, barely breathing, their curiosity coiled like a spring. My daughter-in-law's hand trembles slightly as she sets down her glass. I clear my throat and place the phone in the center of the table. Its scratched silver casing gleams faintly in the candlelight. You've all wondered what this old phone means to me. I begin, my voice steady, carrying into every corner of the room. To you, it's a relic. To me, it's memory and it's proof. My son leans forward, his voice sharp. Proof of what? I open the drawer at my side and pull out the envelope, placing it gently beside the phone. Gasps ripple through the table. Slowly, deliberately, I slide out the folded document and lay it flat. Proof that not everything you see is all there is. Proof that what you mocked may carry more weight than you imagine. He snatches at the papers, scanning quickly. His face drains as he reads the deed, the land, the title, the property he never knew existed. The room murmurs, a wave of whispers rising. This can't be real, he stammers, his hands trembling. It's real, I reply calmly. Your mother and I bought it years ago. We paid every tax, every fee, quietly, silently, because some things are not meant to be paraded until the time is right. Mainstream fact property deeds in this country are binding. Once registered, they cannot be erased by denial. They outlast memory, even blood. I see the truth sinking into him, heavy and merciless. He had believed me to be poor, weak, clinging to scraps of the past. Now he sees the reality. I'm not empty. I never was. A strange detail flickers through my mind. My wife once said that truth, when spoken aloud, can change the color of a room. Looking around now, I see it. Faces pale, shoulders slumped, the laughter gone. My son drops the papers on the table, his voice cracking. Why didn't you tell me? Because I say softly, respect should never be bought with inheritance. It should be given freely, and you gave me none. The words strike harder than the deed itself. His eyes widen, his mouth opening and closing like a man drowning. For once, he has no retort. I thought exposing the truth would bring relief. Instead, it sharpens every fracture in this family. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The room quivers under the weight of what has been revealed. The deed lies open on the table, the ink dark and undeniable. No one dares to touch it now. My son sits frozen, his chest heaving, his fingers twitching as though the paper itself burns his skin. Around us, the relatives shift uneasily. My cousin clears his throat but says nothing, his eyes darting between me and my son. An aunt mutters a prayer under her breath as if seeking protection from a curse. My daughter-in-law sits stiff, her lips pressed, thin eyes calculating. She thought she married into control. Now she realizes she married into ignorance. The silence stretches, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I sip from my water glass slowly, my calm presence clashing with their restless fidgeting. Finally, one relative blurts out, "All these years, and you never told anyone." I shake my head. Not all truths need to be shouted. Some truths wait for the right moment. My son snaps his gaze to me, his voice rising. The right moment. Or was this just your way of punishing me, sitting there while I made a fool of you, knowing you had this hidden all along? His voice cracks at the edges, more desperation than anger now. Punishment, I repeat softly. No, but respect is earned, not demanded, and you gave me none. Mainstream fact family therapists often say that wealth reveals character rather than creates it. Tonight I see the truth of that in every trembling expression. A strange cultural detail drifts into my mind. In old village feasts, when a shocking revelation surfaced, elders believed the air itself thickened with spirits listening. Looking at the pale faces around me, I wonder if those spirits are crowding this room now. The weight of my words presses harder than I expected. The relatives avoid my son's gaze, ashamed for him, yet unwilling to take sides. He sits, shoulders slumped, rage flickering but trapped by fear. For once the room does not belong to him. I fold the deed carefully, slipping it back into the envelope. The sound of the paper sliding against paper is the only sound in the room. Their silence tells me everything. The balance of power has shifted and they know it. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. When the last relative finally slips out into the night, the house feels cavernous, emptied of laughter, but heavy with echoes. I gather the dishes slowly, one by one, letting the clink of porcelain against porcelain fill the silence my son left behind. He didn't say goodbye. He stormed out without even glancing back, his wife trailing stiffly behind him. I carry the old phone to my room. Its scratches shine faintly in the lamplight, every scar a story etched into metal. I set it on the desk and open it with a gentle snap. My thumb hovers, then presses the button I've avoided for weeks. The voicemail plays, her voice spilling into the room. "Don't forget the lilies. I'll see you tomorrow." The sound of her nearly undoes me. Tears blur my eyes, but I blink them back. I whisper into the quiet. "They mocked you too, didn't they? For believing in small joys, but you were right all along." Mainstream fact. Grief experts say recordings of a loved one's voice can act as a therapeutic anchor. For me, it is more than therapy. It is proof that love outlives humiliation. A peculiar memory rises. My wife once told me that lilies were not just flowers. In folklore, they symbolized renewal, even resurrection. She planted them in our garden with that belief. I never watered them after her death. Perhaps tomorrow I will. I sit in the dim light, listening to her message on repeat until the words blur into music. The anger from earlier fades, replaced by a hollow ache. The deed, the property, the phone, they are shields. Yes, but they are also burdens. They remind me of what I've lost more than what I still hold. I glance at the empty chair across from me, the one she used to fill. The room breathes with silence pressing at my chest. Family should have been my comfort. Instead, they've turned into strangers wearing familiar faces. Still, I cling to one thought: storms pass. Even the cruelest laughter fades. What remains, truth, memory, love, is stronger. I thought the confrontation would be the end, but endings, I realize, are just quiet beginnings in disguise. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The next morning, the house feels strangely still, as if it too is catching its breath after the storm. Sunlight filters through the curtains, soft and forgiving, landing gently on the old phone that rests beside my bed. I reach for it, running my thumb across the worn keypad, and for the first time in days, I feel no shame. What others mocked is what has kept me alive. I sit by the window with a cup of tea, the steam curling into the cool morning air. The envelope lies on the desk, closed once more, its weight steady but no longer heavy. The deed is not just about property, it is about choice. My choice to hold on to the past, to protect what my wife and I built, and to reveal it only when the moment demanded. I think of my son. His face, pale and trembling, will not leave my mind. Anger still lingers. But beneath it lies sorrow. A father never stops hoping his child will change, no matter how deep the wounds. Perhaps one day he will remember the boy he once was, the boy who clutched this same phone and called it mom's treasure. Mainstream fact psychologists say respect within families is not inherited, but earned daily like trust. I see the truth of that now. Love cannot be forced, and inheritance cannot buy loyalty. A small, peculiar memory returns. My wife once said lilies would bloom again, if tended even after years of neglect. Renewal was always possible, she believed. I step outside later and water the patch where her lilies used to grow. For the first time in years, I believe they might return. The night's confrontation taught me something simple yet sharp. Wealth can expose betrayal, but silence and patience can preserve dignity. My son may not understand now, but perhaps one day he will. Until then, I have my memories, my phone, and my own quiet strength. The world outside stirs with life, children laughing down the street, a neighbor's dog barking, the wind carrying the scent of rain. Life moves forward with or without reconciliation. I close the phone gently, hearing the soft click and whisper, "Rest easy, love. I'll carry this for both of us." Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.